All right, everybody. Welcome to episode number 28 of Parx Sportsbook presents Stick to Hockey Live. We got a ton to get into on the show today. Let me real quick tell you before we get to Russ Cohen about the great Parx Sportsbook. Download the app, put it on your phone, whether you got an Android, you got an iOS phone, download the app, put it on there, check it out, peruse around, find some bets you like. And as soon as you're ready to go, pull the trigger, deposit, and your first bet is risk-free up to $500. So get the app, real simple. Again, the Parx Sportsbook app, download it, open up account, deposit, first bet risk-free up to $500. And you can bet on player performances, props, first to score, exact score, money lines, player performances. It's all there, not only for hockey, but college hoops, which is obviously a pretty big month right now. And then beyond that, pro basketball, maybe baseball at some point too. And make sure you follow Parx on all the different social channels at Parx Sportsbook on Twitter. Follow them on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook as well. There you get great content and much, much more. We have tons to get into in this episode. And a lot of it's going to surround, obviously, the 5-year extension of Rasmus Ristolainen at $5.1 million. He takes a pay cut. To talk about the pay cut, the player, and much more, analytics versus eye test. It's the one and only from sportsology.com, at Sportsology on Twitter. It's Russ Cohen. Russ, what's going on?
Yeah, hockey. I woke up this morning and I was up already. I was up since 7, but still, I was a little surprised today at the signing.
I'm ready if I would have known that today would be the day they would extend Ristolainen, I would have gone full-blown Jim Morrison today and go, I woke up this morning and I got myself a beer.
I like that. Yeah. I mean,
not to celebrate it, but just to deal with it.
Right. There's a lot of angles to it. The interesting part is, for me, the money part is okay. Like, it's not too high. It's not going to kill you right away, at least. And so the money part is sort of like secondary here. Now, do they still have cap problems? Yeah, they still have cap problems. I mean, that's not going away. But the other thing is, I looked at Travis Sanheim's stats. Besides knowing, because I go to almost all the games, what he's meant to Sanheim. And so you look at it, and Sanheim's got 5 more points this season. He's got like 2 or 3 more goals. Instead of being a -22, Sanheim is a +2. Now, you may not love plus or minus, but the Flyers are a bad team right now. It would be easy to be -22 this year, but he's not. And he's not because he has confidence in Ristolainen. So he's brought him that confidence. And the other thing about Ristolainen is, again, you can never go online and say he's good at what he's doing because Buffalo fans will kill you. Fine, I don't care. I just ignore that. But at the end of the day, he's also happy here. And he probably did a cost analysis with his agent, went out there, saw what the market was like. Pelech makes $5.75. Pelech is a better defender. There's no question about it, even though Ristolainen has a little more offense in his game, not a ton, but a little in this role. And you figure Pelech probably could have gotten 6. We all thought early in the season, if Ristolainen had this great year, he might be able to get 6. Well, probably wasn't able to get that. So then the money was probably close enough that it was like, I like it here. The fans aren't booing me here. They've embraced me. And that matters too. Going to work happy matters.
Yeah. And your situation matters. And, he does like it here. And I know he's really assimilated well with a lot of the players here. You hope it's not the guys that are leaving that are going to be traded, right?
Right.
But, all in all, I mean, what this obviously does, Russ, is it restokes or brings out the argument of analytics versus eye test. And I don't like to look at it analytics versus eye test. And look, I think this is a really important point to me. Again, and I've gone on the riff with you on here before and on Flyers Daily and on social media that why would you grow an analytics department? By the way, they are 5 data analysts, which we talked about last week.
Yeah, and that's
not
a good
4.
size.
Yeah, but why would you grow an analytics department to just defy them? That would be stupid. But here's the thing, and you see it on social media, and there's a lot of regurgitation of other people's analytics. They put the player card up that analytic guy Micah will put up, or Jay Fresh will put up, or Andy and Rono. And I think a lot of people regurgitate this shit because they're regurgitating other people's analysis and numbers and analytics because they don't know what they're looking at when they see a player. Maybe they're not educated enough. I don't know. I don't give a shit. But don't regurgitate other people's stuff. Have you watched the player play this year?
Right.
And does he have a 1% hockey war wins above replacement rating? If you watch the games and you've come to the conclusion that he's a 1% wins above replacement player, then I don't know what you're looking at. Get a new TV. Get rid of the floor model Zenith and get a new fucking TV. Because that's not what he's playing like.
Yeah, between television and in person, I've only missed a couple of games. So I've seen exactly how he's been this year. Went to camp. This is a situation like this is when I tell people the reason I don't call myself a scout is because I don't have the budget to go and watch a player in the draft for like 30 times in the season. If I had to do that for everybody, I would never get a draft list done. I just couldn't do it. So I have other means that I could use to just sort of make my list and write about the prospects, which is what I love to do. But in this case, I get to see this guy way more than a lot of other people do. And the fact is, he is good at the position they have him in right now. This is the spot that right now where he's at, where his talent level is at, that he's good at. Doesn't mean he doesn't make mistakes. Doesn't mean he doesn't have turnovers. Every defenseman in the NHL does. They're facing great players all the time. He's facing somebody in the other team's top 6 all the time. So you're going to have some problems, but he is good physically. He's actually been even hitting a little more than we thought he would this year. And we knew that probably because he was trying to change the narrative about him. And I think he's done a good job with that.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I mean, I saw some tweets earlier, people going, tell me what he does well.
And I know. I'll go this argument. We went through this. It's the worst.
Yeah. I look at a goal that was scored at 19:05 of the first period. It gave the Flyers a 2-0 lead in the game. It was the Cam Atkinson goal where he in the D zone, big hit behind the net, separates the player from the puck, gets it along the wall, moves it up the ice, stretches the ice. Atkinson ends up going in on a 2-on-1 with Scott Lawton, scores. Like, okay, that's a really good hockey play in all zones. And
so I just don't get the Vegas game, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
So, okay. So as an example, post game, I'm with Peter DeBoer, and just to emphasize your point, how important that goal was, he goes, look, when you're down 2-0 in this league, no matter who you're playing, you're chasing the game.
Yeah.
Like you're immediately chasing the game. You're hoping to catch up. And look, if it weren't for Carter Hart, I think they would have caught up. But he was spot on that night. But just to emphasize your point, that was the play that made that possible, that gave them a better chance to win that game than it would have otherwise. And he won't get credit for it.
No, you're right. He won't. I mean, the thing about it is if you watch the games, you can see the impact that he has. And if you see the impact, is he responsible for Travis Sanheim playing better?
Yes.
Maybe a little bit, but it's also incumbent upon Sanheim to play better. He feels more comfortable.
But, it's a comfort factor, though.
Exactly.
It really is. I mean, he has to be playing with a partner for a long period of time. Like, again, when he played with Myers, it was a good pairing for a while. In the end, it turns out Myers couldn't hold up his end of the bargain. It wasn't Sanheim's fault. But when it was good for a reason, because that's the way Sanheim sort of needs to play it.
Yeah.
I watched him enough to know that.
And you watched Sanheim this year. You've watched him throughout his whole career, Russ, since before he even got to the NHL. Yeah. He's fine. He's a tall guy. He's not thick, right? But he's a guy that's never played with any bite to his game. All of a sudden, he's got a little bit of bite. Now, why is that? Is that by proxy? Because he knows he's got this guy on his right side that's got a ton of bite.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like anything else. If somebody with energy comes on to your pairing, you're going to get more energy. It's like anything else. If you're at a party, adult party, and then there's somebody that, like, I'll just use the name Rodney Dangerfield. He walks in, all of a sudden the life of the party comes in, the energy level goes up, right? I mean, that's just the way it is.
Wow, you went Rodney Dangerfield.
I did, because I just, I never got to meet the guy, but you have to believe there would be a good couple of hours of fun there if you were hanging out at a place with Rodney Dangerfield.
I totally agree. He'd walk in the room, there'd be an immediate presence.
Yes.
My favorite line from him, oddly enough, is not from Caddyshack. My
Really?
favorite line from him is from Back to School.
Okay.
When he asked the teacher out, his teacher, right? He
Yeah.
goes, "I'd like to take you out on a date. How about tomorrow night?" She goes, "Oh, I can't. I have class." He goes, "What about the next day?" And she goes, "I can't. I have class." And he goes, "Well, why don't you call me when you have no class?"
Right.
Double entendre on
Yes.
class.
It was good.
In other
No,
words,
no,
to go
it
out
was
with
good.
me, you can't have class.
I still like Rodney in Caddyshack when he knew he was being overmatched on the golf course, and he hits the ball and it hits his arm, and then he acts like he's got a broken arm. It's
Yeah.
swinging like that.
Yeah.
He's just great. He always made me laugh.
So classic. One of the other things here too, when it comes to Ristolainen, and you know, I don't want this point to get lost because I know that people are regurgitating the analytics, and I'm not saying people's analytics are wrong, but there's one thing that's not taken into equation. Now, on draft night last year, Bill Meltzer, Brian Smith, and I were at the Flyers practice facility doing the draft show, and they made the deal for Ristolainen. And, there's all kinds of people walking around and blah, 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 talking to different scouts and talking to Chuck Fletcher. And Danny Briere was walking by. And we were in a break, and I pulled Danny into the room. I said, "Hey, what do you think of the Ristolainen signing?" And he's like, "I love it." Now, Danny's not a big physical player, wasn't he?
Mhm.
Yielded a mean stick to create space and learned how to play as an undersized guy in this league. And I said, "Well, what do you like about it?" Because I said, obviously the analytics department is up in arms. And he said, the thing that analytics can't measure when it comes to a guy like Ristolainen is what it does for everybody else on the team.
Right.
If you're down in front of the opposition net and you're getting the shit beat out of you, and you go down, you look down at your end and nobody's making the other team pay to go to that place, then it's demoralizing mentally. And he goes, not only that, but analytics do not account for fear and accountability on the ice of the physicality. And this is a team that, for us, they need more physicality, not less. If they'd have got
Right.
rid of him, they're going to be looking for more of that now that they even have him. But that element does not show up in an analytics equation.
No. I'm going to say, and I'm not matching up these players exactly, but somebody who played with Briere that was similar in being tough and blocking shots and all that was like Rory Fitzpatrick. Like he had that guy on his team. And he knows, when you have that guy, he's gonna block shots, he's gonna hit people, he will get occasional points, and that's gonna help us all. And so I agree with Danny. I think that's very apt of him to say, and I don't think he's saying it to be a homer because he's really not that guy. I think he actually has a pretty good strong voice where he's not afraid to go against it if it's going against it. And look, and it's not like Jason and I are saying this is the greatest signing and it's going to make them a playoff team. It's not.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to do before I would ever say they could be a playoff team, but you still have to have players there to help your other young players develop. And so this is a good step in that. Now, the fact that he's there for 5 years, even if the Flyers don't want to say it, in 2 or 3, if they're ready to compete again, well, then you still have them, and you have them at a young age.
Let me read you this. When they signed Ristolainen or made the trade for Ristolainen in the offseason, so we heard that from Danny. And I've read this before, but I'll read it again. I'm not going to say what player it's from. It's from a very prominent offensive player on the Flyers. And I texted about playing against Ristolainen and that the analytics, I just wanted to get some temperature from a guy that's currently playing against that specific player. And they played them 8 times last year.
Yeah.
Because they were in the division. And this player, again, this is not a bottom 6 player. This is a top 6 forward. Said hockey is simple until you over-evaluate it. There are no analytics for fear when on the ice because you can have all the skills in the world, but they are easily taken away with fear. Tough teams have more room to make plays. Don't quote me on this. Haha.
Yeah.
So I'm quoting you, but I'm not saying who you are.
Right. You're not attributing the quote. No, it's true. I mean, it's a very fair point. And he definitely is a guy that, hey, if he's on the ice, if I've got the puck, if I'm a smaller guy, I'm not going on his side. Why would I?
No, I'm looking to avoid him.
Right.
which then plays into your hands because now there's
Right.
a level of predictability. Again, he's not a perfect player,
No.
but like I'm trying to figure this out, Russ. Like how can we extend an olive branch so that the analytics community and the eye test community can get together a little bit? Because like, am I supposed to discount what the analytics community is saying? I don't think I'm supposed to discount that. I think I'm supposed to
No.
consider it
Right.
and use it as a measurable. And then the other part is, but am I supposed to discount what Claude Giroux or James Van Riemsdyk or Danny Briere says about the effect of a guy like Ristolainen on the ice?
No, I mean, that's as important as anything. I think, and in some cases, more important because they're the one dealing with the actual guy
Thank you.
and what it does on the ice. There's a lot of things that go on the ice that you can't quantify. The hope is with analytics and anything else that you're getting enough nailed down that you get a good snapshot. My thing would be, why not look at Travis Sanheim and what they do together and see if there's a plus there that you could say about Ristolainen to give him some credit. That's the olive branch I think that needs to be looked at. Because I know if you interview Sanheim, he's never going to say a bad thing about Ristolainen, and he shouldn't because it definitely helped him. But I think if you just look at it deeply, not just at the basic stats like I did, I think there's probably things to find.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Dreger put out a tweet too that now that they signed Ristolainen, that maybe Sanheim could be moved. He's going to go into the final year of his deal, Russ, and it's going to take him right up to unrestricted free agency.
Yeah, I know that.
That doesn't seem to make sense to me though. Like
it doesn't.
like, I go, what's the logic there that why you finally have a second pairing D that fits well together? Both players are playing well, and now you're going to break that up. To me, that seems almost like a diversion to Provorov.
No, but I'll tell you what the narrative on that is. The narrative on that is basically this. It's okay. Looking at the cap, there's like, I don't know, right now there's only like $8 million of cap space. They're probably going to have to buy at least 3 players, even if you have players coming up from the minors. You're not getting great players for $8 million for like 3 players. Now, if you could dump Van Riemsdyk's contract, great, but you're still costing yourself assets down the road for that too. So there's a high cost for that. So who knows if that's going to happen. But in the end, I think people are looking at it monetarily wise and say, well, they can't afford to pay Sanheim. Well, they can if like Konechny were to get traded, and it's not impossible that he would get traded. There's other things that could happen that would allow them to do that. Then someone else is like, well, they don't want to spend $24 million in their top 4. And it's like, well, maybe they do because they can't do anything about the Ryan Ellis contract now. But I don't know if Ryan Ellis is going to just walk into next year and be Ryan Ellis again. And if he isn't, you need Sanheim. So you can't trade Sanheim just based off of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what they did too with Ristolainen is they lock up a right side guy. And yes. Are you a little shocked that the AAV is lower than this current AAV? 5.4 now. He's in the final year of his deal, obviously. He's going to a 5.1 AAV. So, I mean, there's a lot of elements there. I mean, how the heck do you get a guy to take a pay cut in his prime when he's headed up to UFA status?
Yeah, I'll tell you how, though. It's about deployment. When he was getting the 5.4, the hope was that he was a power play guy, that he'd get 50 points a year and be a top, offensive defenseman on the Sabres. That didn't happen, but that was the hope when he got that kind of money. He isn't that guy. So now, the way he's being deployed now, the way he's being used now, it's more in line with what that position gets. And that's what he's comfortable with, and that's what he's better at. So I think that part doesn't shock me.
Yeah, it's amazing, this deal, and to get it done. And they get Ristolainen and they get their guy at $5.1 million for 5 years. And when you look at what some of these right-handed guys got paid, I mean, it's insane.
But they don't have a lot more offense in their game and get power play time and all that.
Yeah,
more than Ristolainen does. They do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They should absolutely get paid more. But when you look at, top pairing right side guy at 9.25 or 10 million, and you get your second guy that brings some intangibles to the equation at 5.1, I think it's a good deal for the Flyers. I like the player. I value those physical elements quite a bit. I know you do as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think we're seeing the game have a bit of a reversion back to those elements of the way to play.
to some degree. And then there's some teams that are taking it too far, like the Flyers, trying to bring up every big guy, the Zach McEwens, and they, want to bring up Ratcliffe simply because he's big, not because they should try and develop him because he's actually a really good talent, but they like the big in him. And of course they like the big in Forrester, but they don't talk about like his great shot or anything. They just like his size. I think they were a little too caught up on it. Like I thought the Rangers were too caught up on the size factor. And look, Sammy Blais not even in their lineup. He hasn't played most of the year. He got hurt early on. So it's like all those great laid plans about toughness is you should have some on your team. No question about it. If you want to add a little for the playoffs because it gets a little nasty, I never say no. But I wouldn't put too much on a roster because speed and skill are still going to win at this game. It's just defense is important, though, because goaltending has gotten to be such a tough position that you do have to really have a defense that's willing to block shots and that can get the puck out of the zone quickly, whether it's moving it out, skating, or getting it out otherwise with passing. So those things have to happen no matter what to be successful in my eyes.
Absolutely. Russ, thanks for doing this. Check them out on sportsology.com, at Sportsology on Twitter.
I got my new draft list out. 2.0 is out at sportsology.com, so people could check that out. I'll have a list of 45 out soon, and away we go.
I love it. All right, Russ, thanks for doing this, man.
Okay, see ya.
All right, so we go from one guest, one Russ, not the Russ he works with, to Anthony Sanfilippo from crossingbroad.com. He joins us right now on Stick to Hockey Live, presented by Parx Sportsbook. Well, Ant, your initial reaction to the deal done?
You know what? I'll tell you, Jay, I think it's a good deal for the Flyers. I know a lot of people, a lot of fans are kind of losing their minds over this, but I think there's a lot that you like about Rasmus Ristolainen's game that really can't be measured either in counting statistics or in even public analytics. I think there are things about the way he plays in his own end that just really work and will work for a good team. And so when we could talk about those things specifically, but when you, from a high level, when you put that together and look and say, if we're going to put together a team that we think can compete in the next year or two, having a second pair defenseman at 5.1 is not that expensive. It really isn't.
Especially a right side guy.
Yeah, especially on the right side where, not every team, although it's starting to trend that way, but not every team is balancing all of their D pairs, left, right, left, right, left, right. The Flyers are kind of committed to that a little bit, but not everybody's doing that, but it's starting to become the trend to really do it. So it's good to get a guy like that and into that spot, and I'll tell you what, and I say this, in 5 years, he's 31, 32, $5 million is going to be a bargain.
Yeah.
We talked about the Sanheim deal when Sanheim signed his deal, and I know his was more of a bridge contract than what Ristolainen's is here. But Sanheim's contract was what, 4.65, 4.7. We're looking at a guy there that we knew was going to be a second pair guy because of Provorov. So, and yes, he was younger when he signed it, but why is this that much more? Why is this that much worse? Because he doesn't have the offensive kind of game that a Sanheim has. It doesn't move the puck like Sanheim does, but it's the same pairing, guys. This is what the going rate is for players of second pair defensemen, and to keep them here, that's what they had to do. I think it's a good deal. I really do.
I do too. I thought it was going to cost more than this, and the part of it, you have to look at the market value of right side defensemen. Yeah, he's not a top pairing guy, so he's not going to command Dougie Hamilton $9 million or Seth Jones type of money. But look what some of these D guys are getting paid, and it's really rare to me, Ant, that a guy entering UFA status is going to sign a 5-year deal. I thought he could have pushed term maybe a little bit more here too. And maybe they did talk about longer term, 6 years or 7 years at a lower AAV. But he ultimately decided, hey, when this is up, I'll be 32. I can sign another deal if my body holds up and I have good business decisions.
Yeah, no, it was. I think that the 5 ended up being his push. I think that the Flyers wanted to give him 6. And I think that it came back. I think that he asked for 5, or his agent Mike Liu asked for 5,
knowing he can sign another deal at 32.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, I mean, I think that was a pretty smart move by Liute. So no, I do. I think this is. I know everybody's going to go nuts about it, right? But I mean, when it really comes down to it, this is not that much money. I mean, just look at every team around the league, what they're paying their second pair guys, and you'll see that this is on par. Now, the argument that people will make is Ristolainen's not as good as those other guys are. Well, it depends on what you're looking at, right? I mean, it depends on
and fit.
Yeah, and how they fit into your roster. You know, like I don't know. I just think it fits. I think this is a good fit for this team. This team needs size. They need physicality. They need people. What he does well, Jay, and I think that this is the thing that really gets kind of lost in his game, is he blows up plays in his own end so frequently, and people don't realize that he's just doing that. You know, like it's one thing to not have the puck. You say, oh, well, you know, he's in his own end and he's got to defend all the time. He's not a, puck drive. He's not a possession driver. I get all that. That's the analytic stuff that you wish was better. I get it. But when the puck isn't, and he is playing defense, who's playing defense like better than him?
Yeah.
Like he kills so much of the opposition of their attack, and then gets the puck. And maybe who knows at that point, okay, maybe you might have a couple problems on the breakout. Maybe he's not the greatest breakout guy, but at least he's blowing up the plays.
Yeah.
He's not letting them, he's not standing on the ice and just standing there and, letting guys just shoot, through him and around him all the time.
Yeah. See, my problem, and I know you guys at Snow the Goalie also spoke with Ian Anderson, who I spoke with as well on Flyers Daily.
Yeah.
The one thing about analytics is it's incomplete. It doesn't weigh everything. And sometimes stats can't and math can't weigh everything. The other thing, too, is just the effect of him on the ice. You see Sanheim's got more bite in his game now. Why is that? He had Phil Myers next to him, who's a big man, but not a physical player. And those two were a good partner because they both could skate like the wind. But the reason I think Sanheim's got some bite now is because he's got that guy next to him. Physicality breeds physicality, and it makes when you have a vicious player on the ice, it makes everybody tougher. It just does by proxy, right?
No, for sure. And then here's the other thing that I wanted to I'm glad you brought up Ian Anderson, because I thought it was important. That he said, I had asked him, and I was trying to ask him about Ristolainen without asking him about Ristolainen. Yeah. But I asked the question. I said, without getting into specific players, if the team is considering, signing a guy or trading for a guy or giving a guy a contract extension, how involved are you guys in that decision? And he said they're, deeply involved. Yep. So much so that they will sit there and they will give projections for, year 4, year 5, year 6. And if they, if we go a little further, how does this affect everybody else? And they are giving Chuck like actual projections for the team. So there's no question that the analytics team of the Flyers looked at Rasmus Ristolainen and said, yes, 5 years, $5 million works for us.
Yeah, it's a value proposition. They're giving that part of it as well. Yeah. Rising market values based on what the player can give, projections going forward, based on the analytics. See, I've gone on this rant a couple of times, Ant, and to me, this is the most important thing. Public analytics are what they are, how they're tracked. NHL teams have, and Ian mentioned it when I had him on Flyers Daily, that they got the data dump, and it was 10 times information from the NHL. They're going to start getting more with player and puck tracking and all that. But they have more information at their disposal than the public does. They just do. They're an NHL team. They get the data, the actual data. Mm-hmm. And, why would a general manager in Chuck Fletcher, invest into 5 full-time employees getting health benefits and being paid well, to just not listen to them and just defy them?
Right.
It tells you that the information they have is different than what the public has, because, it would be really stupid, because Ian told me basically he had to go to Chuck Fletcher and say, this is how I want to grow the department, make a pitch. to grow the department. They were initially going to add 3 people. They've added 2. They may add 1 more to a 6th. And he makes the pitch, and Chuck goes, I like it. I have to now pitch it to my boss, Dave Scott. He pitches it to his boss, Dave Scott. And then you have this polarizing analytic player in Rasmus Ristolainen, and you're going to just defy the public analytics or the analytics when you just grew a department. That's a good way to get fired. That's like me hiring 5 accountants for my business and me doing the taxes.
Yeah, no,
Like,
absolutely.
that's dumb, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Absolutely is. So I mean, this isn't like, oh, Chuck fell in love with a guy that he traded 2 high draft picks in Robert Haig for, and he couldn't get, that kind of return or even close to that kind of return from around the league at the trade deadline. So he just sucked it up to keep him. And this is what he did. No, it's not that at all. There's a lot more that goes into this decision, and it includes the analytics department. And so I don't know, we're going to have, the people who live and die and hang by the analytics in the public fighting with those who are doing the analytics behind the scenes now? Or are we going to have it, our public analytics are better than your private ones? Like, I mean, is that where we're at in this whole thing? I don't know. I just look at it and say that, there's a lot to this, a lot that went into this decision. And to get a second pair Defenseman who brings what he brings night in, night out, for that kind of salary, I think makes sense. I really do.
Darren Dreger put this tweet out after he signed as well and said, some are wondering if Risto extension opens the door to a Travis Sanheim trade, either before the deadline or in the offseason. He would be pretty high on a few teams' target list. Left shot, 4.675 cap hit through next season. Then he's a UFA. That doesn't make sense to me. You finally have a pairing that's working well together. This seems like a classic diversionary tactic, and maybe the guy that they're considering moving is actually Provorov. Not Sanheim. It would be Provorov. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think so too. And I mean, I put in the story. I put Drager's tweet in the story because I thought it was interesting. But the idea is that, when you look at what you have salary wise next year on defense, the question that you have to ask yourself is, do you want to have $23 million or whatever it is, $24 million tied up in your top 4 defensemen with a flat cap that's not moving, knowing you have to fill out all those other roster spots? And it's maybe you do if they're that good, but have we seen anything from Provorov? I mean, obviously Ellis is going to be here because he didn't play all year. But if you look at the other 3 guys, you just re-signed Ristolainen. Sanheim has been your best defenseman. Have you seen anything from Provorov that makes you say we absolutely 100% have to keep him? I think they would, but at the same time, if you look at it and say, if we can get creative and get some value in return for a player, maybe that's the place we go and move on from him.
Yeah, because he has a couple of things. Obviously, he plays a lot of minutes. He has the reliability of availability. He's only missed 2 games, and they were asymptomatic COVID case protocols.
Right.
And I mean, I think he's more valuable to you if you can get him fixed and move forward. Plus, moving him right now, his value's not at its peak value. That's obvious based on the way he's played. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of parts of that equation. I don't think he's a guy that you're going, I have to move. But if you're looking for high-end talent, he could certainly be a part of a package that lands you high-end talent.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it. And maybe that's where they go. I mean, I thought that it was interesting that Drager mentioned Sanheim because usually guys like Drager, they're not throwing names out there just to throw them out there, right?
No,
usually when he's saying a name, he's probably heard it somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But I question whether he's heard that from Philadelphia or from somewhere else. Yeah. That's the thing, and
because do Provorov and Ristolainen fit together?
They don't, and that was one of the interesting things. They did the press conference with Ristolainen that I thought was really kind of thought it was a good question, and he gave a good answer, talking about playing with Sanheim and how much he enjoys it. And he said, I really like playing with him, and hopefully we could play together now for a really, really long time. If you are getting the sense that he's the guy that could be on the chopping block, maybe Rasmus doesn't say that. Maybe he just leaves it to this year. They've played well together and move on to the next question. If you're saying you hope that they're together for a long, long time, that's not to say that, he knows anything specifically, but maybe maybe that was part of the conversation with this negotiation. It's like, listen, we like the way you play with Sanheim, and we, like to keep you guys together as much as possible, and and maybe that's him responding to that and saying, yeah, I like playing with this guy, and hopefully we could be together for a while.
Yeah, it's a big element of it, I think, and I think it's a good point that you bring up, because when you're committing somewhere, you want to know you're not just committing to the team, you're committing to your specific situation. And his specific situation is, who am I going to play with? Am I going to have success? I want to win. And how much of what played into this, and people that you've talked to, is that he likes it here, that he likes the teammates, he likes the organization, and he just doesn't want to go somewhere else, because the grass does look greener in other places sometimes until you get there. But when you get to a place and you're comfortable and the organization treats you well, that the quality of life is important to pro athletes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And he mentioned it. He kind of and he stopped himself too. It was interesting to hear him when he talked about moving here from Buffalo and how that really kind of sucked, right? It was a pain, he said. And then, so that maybe he doesn't like the constant moving around. Maybe he likes to be in one place and
rooted,
and feel grounded, right? I mean, rather than have to constantly look for the next gig and look for what's next, or where, keep chasing it. So that's part of it. And I think that part of it is, and it's really kind of interesting, and maybe, we all think that, maybe I shouldn't say we, but there's a lot of people who think that, the Flyers are nuts to think that they can retool this thing and be competitive as soon as next year. But maybe on the inside, a guy like Ristolainen looks at it and goes, yeah, I wanted to be on a playoff team. Yeah, I wanted to show what I can do in the playoffs. I still believe in this group. I still think this group can get there.
Yeah.
So maybe they're closer than, we heard, Briere said it at his introductory press conference, that this team's better than you think. They play, they're closer than you think. We also are not naive to the fact that there are gaping holes that need to be filled. Mm-hmm. But in order to fill those sized holes, you're going to have to make the kind of creative moves that you just talked about. And one of them could be moving on from your highest paid defenseman and, see what that brings in return.
And one of them's not creating another hole.
Right. Right. Well, so interesting. I think what's really, really interesting is where they feel Cam York fits.
Yeah.
Ultimately. Is Cam York next season a top 4 defenseman? I don't know. I mean, he probably eventually gets there, but I don't know if he's there next season. Yet they might be counting on him to be one next year.
Yeah, depending.
On what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. He could be the guy, or even if Drager's right, throwing Sanheim's name out there, which would surprise me a little bit. But even if he's right, and you say, okay, well, he's going to play with Ristolainen. Okay. I mean, that's, but do they really believe that, he's that close to being
a guy that can make a great first pass out of the zone?
Yeah.
Cam York's that guy.
Yeah, he can. Correct.
Yeah. Last thing for you, and we're going to get to Tone's takes. Mike Yeo was very harsh on his team after the Minnesota Wild game, and rightfully so. And it worked. They won 2 straight games. I know you and I have talked about it, his transparency and his honesty in the media, and he doesn't say anything publicly that he hasn't said to their face in that room. I think that's really important to understand.
Right.
But, the way that the conversation he had and what he had to say the day after the Wild game about being a good teammate, sometimes you got to go up to your best friend. You got to say, we need more from you. And I thought that was awesome what he said. What would you think of what Mike Yeo had to say and how he delivered that message?
Well, I thought it was really apropos because he was saying it in response to a question about Ivan Provorov.
Yeah.
That's why it was so telling to me, right? I mean, this is, the person that is being asked about is Provorov, and then he's saying you got to be a good teammate. You got to go up and you got to do these things. Like, is that basically saying that they are not happy with the way he is, not just on the ice? Obviously, he's making mistake after mistake, but they're not happy with the way he is in the locker room either. And so I think that's, I don't think it's a shot per se, but I also think it's saying, man, we better see something here in the next little bit, or otherwise maybe we move on from this guy. And Chuck thought about it last year. He thought about it last year. Winnipeg offered him Line before they traded him to Columbus. They offered Line for Provorov straight up. And Chuck turned it down. Now, not to say that would have been a good deal. May not have been. Line's just finally started playing better for Columbus after all that time. He was terrible at the end of all of last year, and really wasn't good to start this year. Got hot lately. But, in retrospect, if you're looking at it and you're thinking about it and Chuck thought about it long and hard, do you think about it long and hard now? Or maybe not as long and hard after you see what the season has been for Provorov? I think it's a very fair question.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for doing this as always. Make sure you follow Ann on Twitter. What's the Twitter handle? @AnSanPhilly.
That's it.
And crossingbroad.com is where you can read Anthony's stuff. Thanks for doing this, brother.
Hey, anytime, my friend.
There he is, Anthony Sanfilippo, joining us on the Stick to Hockey live show once again. Repeat performance for him. Let's wrap this show up with a little something we do every Thursday. He helps make you the dough. It's a little something we call Tone Steaks. And there he is. What's going on, Tone?
Hey, what's up, Jason? How you doing?
Doing good, man. It's been like a whirlwind day with this Rasmus Ristolainen and stuff.
Yeah,
I love it. Good things to talk about. One of those polarizing issues to talk about. But we got cash money to talk about. And how about you are coming in like a scorching red hot, white hot flame right now? How about your hot streak? 13-5-1. Plus just about 10 units in the last 19 plays, plus 30 plus units on the season, 30.66. And it's like funny. 2 weeks ago, we did the conversation about bankroll management, and you gotta be prepared for some ebbs and flows when placing action. And since then, white hot.
Yeah, it's a different feeling too. When your initial looks in the morning when you're hot were like no question, this is what I like. When you're cold, then it's like, all right, my second guessing and things like that. But to that point, I still keeping the unit size the same. As you mentioned, it goes up and down. Like not, I've only had one play this year that was above 1 unit, and that was 1.5. Other than that, it's been all straight 1 unit bets, and that's the way I'm going to keep it. So hopefully we can keep it going here.
Yeah, the one thing we talked about too is sticking to your process, because if you believe in the process, don't change it when things aren't going well. It will turn around. Let's get to the games. Let's get to some of the plays for the Parx Sportsbook free $500 bet, risk-free. And you're starting out with Vegas here. You got an over 3.5. You're taking a little bit of juice on this one at -120. What do you like about it?
Yeah, I mean, they've only scored 3 goals in the last 2 games, but they've run into some hot goaltending. Anton Forsberg had, I think, 40 saves on Sunday, and Carter Hart had that amazing performance the other night with 47 saves. Buffalo averages 3.5 goals against at home, and they give up a ton of shots too. So I think this is a game that Vegas can bust out of their little. I don't even want to call it a slump. It's just been it's hot goaltending. They're still getting their shots, still getting their looks. So I like the team total over 3.5 in this for Vegas.
All right, let's stick with Vegas and go with one of the players they acquired. And he's not just an everyday player. He is a highly important player for the Vegas Golden Knights. You got a player prop here on Jack Eichel.
Yeah, anytime goal scorer plus 158. How many times do you see a guy go back to his old team on the road and score a goal? He has 3 goals in 10 games with Vegas. Buffalo has a terrible penalty kill, 71% at home. Like Eichel to get on the board here. And Riley Smith isn't playing tonight, so that's another more opportunities for Jack to get on the board. So
you like Eichel here going home too, being aggressive, getting the puck to the net.
Yep. I'm going to take his over shots on goal, 3.5 plus 105. He had 9 against the Flyers last game. He's hit this in 7 of 10 with Vegas, including each of his last 6, averaging 5 shots per game during that span. Big game for Jack Eichel here predicted. So hopefully doesn't make me look bad.
He obviously circled this one on the schedule when he came back
Yeah.
too. It's like,
Yep.
and I love the way he plays on the power play. When he's on the half wall, he moves to the middle of the ice, and it just changes the dynamic of the spacing of the players. He doesn't just stay on the half wall. Moving into the middle of the ice makes him really dangerous. Let's get to another play here that you like on, which is a really good game: Tampa Bay and Calgary.
Yeah, I like a little prop. No goals in the first 10 minutes, plus 135. Tampa's coming off that game against Winnipeg. It was 3-3 at the end of the first. They ended up losing 7-4. Calgary had to give up 3 goals to Washington in the third period to lose that game the other night. Coaches aren't going to be too happy with that on either team. So I think it's going to be a defensive start to this one. So I like this play a lot. It's not something I would usually do, but I think the situation calls for it here. Both teams can play tight defensively too, so it's not like like they just score goals. They can be either way, and I think it's going to be like I said, a little tight to open up here. So
yeah, I think you're right. I think Cooper is going to want to calm his team down, and what they give up. And Daryl Sutter's teams always play tight defensively.
Right.
It's kind of the perfect storm of scenario and situation versus capability, which is awesome. All right, so the 4 plays here for Tones Takes this week: the over 3.5 minus 120 for Vegas against Buffalo. Then you got 2 Eichels player props here. You got Eichel with the plus 158 against his former team. And then Eichel over 3.5 shots on goal, plus 105, plus money on both of those. I love it. And then the Tampa Bay Calgary, no goals in the first 10 at plus 135. Tremendous value here, Tone. Best of luck, man. Thanks for doing this. Where can people get your stuff?
On Twitter at Tones Takes, and also do daily articles for Dimers and Odds Checker. So appreciate it, Jason, as always.
There he is, Tones Takes. Thanks, brother. Be well this week.
Thanks, you too.
There he is. Tones Takes, another edition on Parx Sportsbook presents Stick to Hockey Live. 3 of the 4 plays Tones gives out this week. How about that? Plus money. We'll take it. So good opportunity for you. Now's a good time to download the app, open it up, deposit, open up an account, deposit, first bet risk-free up to $500. Any one of those 4 bets you'll be fine with. I really like the Tampa Bay Chicago one, first 10 minutes. It's instant gratification too. You don't have to wait a long time. First 10 minutes of a game, no goal, boom, you cash. And then you can get into other in-game live play-by-play betting. You can get into some props, player props, first to score, exact score, points. You can play the puck line, the money line. You can combine it and parlay. Whatever you want to do, it's all there for you. Live in-game play-by-play betting is so much fun. You're going to love that as well. Get a feel for the game. You can do this with the NHL. You can obviously do it with college and pro hoops and just about everything. So check out the app and just kind of see how easy it is to navigate. Easy to get money in, easy to get your money out. So check it out. It's the Parx Sportsbook app, and you will have a blast doing it because this is a great time of year to really kind of sharpen your action because you're coming down to the end of the hockey season. You're coming down to the end of the basketball season, obviously the end of college hoops with the tournament, and then you're going to maybe have baseball at some point. So a good opportunity to get involved and get in the game and take advantage of this $500 risk-free bet, all in the Parx Sportsbook app. So download it on your phone, open up an account, deposit, and first bet risk-free up to $500. And make sure you follow Parx on the social channels, at Parx Sportsbook on Twitter. Follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as well. You get great content there, daily specials, and tons more. So again, make sure you follow them at Parx Sportsbook on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as well. All right, that's going to put to bed a very big Rasmus Ristolainen themed episode of Parx Sportsbook presents Stick to Hockey Live. So we'll be back Monday, another brand new one coming your way. So everybody, thanks for watching. If you're listening via iTunes, make sure you subscribe, leave us a rating and review. We would appreciate that as well. Also subscribe to the YouTube page at JM Media and get all great content there as well. So everybody, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time on a brand new episode of Parx Sportsbook presents Stick to Hockey.